Texas is a state so full of myths that separating imagination from reality often becomes an impossible task. When someone mentions Texas, the first images that usually come to mind are always the same. Cowboys, massive pickup trucks, endless barbecues, sprawling cities bordered by deserts, and a level of local pride that needs no introduction. But behind this familiar stereotype lies a lesser-known side of Texas strains. Contradictory, surprising a side many prefer not to mention. This hidden version begins to surface when we look closely at the first absurd facts about the state. Facts that disrupt logic and dismantle the idea that Texas can be defined by a single, fixed image. The first surprising detail catches almost every visitor off guard. Despite Texas' pride in all things big, not everything in the state follows this rule. The largest privately owned ranch in the United States is not in Texas, as most people believe, but in Montana. That initial shock opens the door to a paradox few notice. Texas, famous for its magnitude, is also home to contrasts, so unexpected that they seem intentionally designed to confuse. You can drive for hours along empty highways and suddenly arrive in a city that feels like a glimpse of the future, complete with towering skyscrapers, advanced technology, and a fast-paced rhythm that contradicts the silence of the road behind you. The climate adds another layer of oddity. In a single day, Texas can swing from freezing cold to suffocating heat. This volatility is more than just a meteorological detail. It shapes daily life and explains why so many residents live prepared for almost anything. Even stranger is discovering that some regions receive more lightning storms than many entire countries, creating a natural spectacle as unpredictable as it is mesmerizing. Culture follows this pattern of contradiction. Though Texas is often seen as the ultimate symbol of traditional American identity, it is also one of the most linguistically and culturally diverse states in the country. Its history shaped by a mosaic of influences. In some cities, it's common to hear 3 or 4 different languages spoken along the same street. And this is just the beginning. The next facts reveal a Texas even more unusual, full of contrasts, hidden stories, and truths that challenge everything you thought you knew. When people picture the Texas map, they often imagine one massive, continuous landscape, a vast stretch of land where everything follows a predictable pattern. Big cities, small rural communities, and huge ranching regions. But looking deeper, we discover territories that behave so strangely they seem like pieces of a puzzle assembled in a hurry. One of the oddest examples is the existence of counties that still have more miles of dirt roads than paved ones, even in the 21st century. These places feel like time capsules, pockets of history where modernity seems hesitant to enter. Another curious detail lies in the ghost towns, communities that appeared and vanished with astonishing speed. Many were born from hopes of gold, oil, or railway expansion that never came to fruition. When these plans failed, the towns were abandoned, leaving behind silent streets, empty buildings, and the remains of dreams interrupted. Walking through these deserted spaces feels like stepping into a moment frozen in time, as if the lives that once filled these streets simply shifted elsewhere and never looked back. There are also cities that grew at such a rapid and intense pace that they became massive urban centers surrounded by nearly uninhabited land. This contrast creates the impression of a fragmented state, made of pieces taken from completely different realities. In some areas, you can drive for hours without seeing a single sign of human activity and then suddenly arrive in a bustling metropolis, filled with lights, traffic, and skyscrapers. The abrupt transition confuses even longtime residents accustomed to the idea that Texas is predictable in its vastness. Rivers add another layer of intrigue. Many Texas rivers have changed course over time, creating confusing borders and disputes that still persist. Some sections look as if they were drawn without intention, winding through areas with almost no human presence. From a geographic perspective, these regions generate debate, especially because certain boundaries follow no natural logic. Even locals often don't know why a county line or property division sits exactly where it does. All these peculiarities transform Texas into a place where geography behaves in unexpected ways. The state feels, in many respects, like a collection of disconnected worlds united under a single name. Each part of its territory holds a different secret, and understanding this diversity requires looking far beyond the main roads. And as the next facts reveal, these unusual contrasts are only the beginning of the vast and complex puzzle that defines Texas. Talking about weather in Texas means stepping into a landscape where logic often loses direction. The state has some of the most extreme and unpredictable meteorological patterns in North America. Within a few hours, a clear, sunny sky can transform into a violent storm, while distant regions face freezing cold or oppressive heat. This volatility is more than an atmospheric curiosity. It has shaped lives, destroyed towns, created local traditions, and influenced how Texans build their homes and organize their routines. Many visitors think it as an exaggeration when they hear that Texas can experience 4 seasons in a single day, but the statement is far from metaphorical. These extreme conditions arise from the state's geographic position, where different air masses frequently collide. During certain periods, icy winds from the north meet warm, humid fronts from the Gulf of Mexico, producing storms that appear with little warning. These systems have triggered sudden floods, unexpected tornadoes, and dramatic temperature drops that even experts struggled to fully anticipate. In some regions, residents remarked that the climate changes so abruptly that crossing from one side of the city to the other can feel like stepping into a completely different environment. Lightning storms are another spectacle. Texas contains areas that record thousands of lightning strikes per year, creating night skies illuminated for hours and thunder that echoes miles away. For outsiders, this can seem frightening, but for many Texans, it's simply part of the rhythm of life. Even so, there is a quiet respect for these natural forces, especially because such storms have caused blackouts, fires, structural damage, and even permanent changes to the landscape. Extreme heat also plays a defining role. During the hottest months, some cities reach temperatures well above 100 degrees Fahrenheit, putting pressure on electrical grids, water supplies, and urban infrastructure. Residents develop intuitive methods to cope, adjusting schedules, clothing, and daily habits to withstand the intensity. And when heat abruptly gives way to sudden cold fronts, the thermal shock creates unusual scenarios, such as unexpected freezes in regions where the ground rarely sees ice. These dramatic shifts have shaped many remarkable local stories. Entire communities have reorganized themselves following sudden climate events, creating strong bonds and traditions rooted in the ability to face the unexpected. In Texas, weather is not just a background condition, it is a living presence that influences the economy, culture, and collective identity. The more we examine it, the clearer it becomes. Understanding Texas means accepting that its skies change with the same speed as the wind sweeping across its plains. And as we move into the next facts, it becomes evident that other aspects of Texas life are just as defined by surprising contrasts. Texas culture is often reduced to familiar imagery: hats, boots, rodeos, loud patriotism, and a spirit of independence deeply rooted in the state's history. But this simplified portrait hides a level of diversity so vast that it surprises even longtime residents. Texas is a cultural mosaic that refuses to fit into traditional frameworks, and each region presents characteristics so distinct that they feel like separate worlds coexisting under the same name. This blend of identities, beliefs, and traditions forms a complex landscape, full of contradictions that many people outside and inside the state never fully notice. Linguistic diversity is one of the most revealing elements. In various Texas cities, it is common to hear multiple languages spoken, reflecting the mix of people who shaped the state over generations. Entire regions carry influences so strong that their traditions differ sharply from everything around them. In certain neighborhoods, cuisine, music, and everyday customs reveal layered origins, creating unique atmospheres. These differences don't compete. They coexist, forming a multifaceted identity that defies stereotypes. Another fascinating aspect is Texas' relationship with its own history. Many residents carry an almost ancestral sense of belonging, as if every piece of land holds emotional significance. That pride isn't superficial. It comes from a past marked by conflict, revolution, reconstruction, and transformation events that shaped the collective mindset. Yet that pride also produces paradoxes. While some fiercely defend long-standing traditions, others drive cultural shifts that push the state into new eras. This dynamic tension makes Texas one of the most culturally fluid states in the country. Local customs contain surprising details as well. In some regions, traditional celebrations originated from unusual historical events, turning specific dates into festivals found nowhere else. In others, regional dishes reveal unexpected combinations of ingredients and origins, culinary echoes of the many groups who contributed to the state's heritage. These small details, when viewed together, form a more complete portrait of Texas daily life. The sense of community is another defining trait. Scattered across such a vast territory, many small towns maintain a cooperative spirit that impresses outsiders. Charity events, weekly gatherings, community meetings, and seasonal festivals are woven into everyday life, strengthening bonds that endure through time and distance. These often invisible connections play a key role in preserving traditions and shaping local stories. The result is a cultural identity too complex for a single definition. Texas is a place of contrasts, modern yet traditional, urban yet rural, loud yet quietly intimate. Each community adds its own voice to the larger picture. And as the next chapters show, these cultural layers influence even the aspects of Texas that seem unrelated at first glance. Texas' economy is often associated with oil, major tech companies, and the explosive growth of cities like Austin, Dallas, and Houston. However, when we look beyond the headlines, we discover a landscape filled with contradictions that reveal a state far more complex than its reputation suggests. In some regions, development advances at an astonishing pace, attracting global investors and creating impressive industrial hubs. In others, small communities struggle to maintain basic services, facing challenges that seem to belong to an entirely different world from that of the booming metropolitan centers. These extremes coexist, revealing a Texas that is unequal, multifaceted, and full of nuances rarely discussed openly. One striking example of this contrast is the fact that Texas is home to both some of the wealthiest and some of the poorest cities in the United States, often separated by just a few hours of driving. While certain counties boast high income levels, technological innovation, and thriving commercial sectors, others grapple with economic hardship that has persisted for decades. The state's historical dependence on industries like oil has created cycles of prosperity and decline that have left deep marks on different communities. When oil prices soar, the economy shows. When they fall, entire towns feel the immediate impact. Another intriguing aspect involves the job market. Although Texas consistently generates thousands of new jobs each year, many of these opportunities are concentrated in specific sectors, leading to an uneven distribution of employment. In rural areas, the shortage of diverse job options often forces residents to migrate toward urban centers in search of stability. This constant movement reshapes the state's demographic profile and subtly transforms the lifestyles of many families. The cost of living also fluctuates in ways that puzzle even longtime observers. Some cities offer surprisingly affordable living conditions, allowing families to enjoy spacious homes and comfort at relatively low prices. Meanwhile, other regions have seen costs skyrocket due to population growth and the arrival of major corporations. This imbalance creates a reality where living in Texas varies dramatically depending on location, making it impossible to define a single Texan experience. These economic contrasts also appear in how cities confront social challenges. Some areas invest in innovative programs addressing education, transportation, and public safety, while others struggle with structural issues that require long-term solutions. The divide becomes especially visible when comparing urban areas to rural ones. Where resources exist, opportunities grow. Where they are lacking, obstacles accumulate. Yet, it is precisely this mix of opposing forces that makes Texas so unique. The coexistence of prosperity and adversity, modernity and tradition, advancement and stagnation builds an economic identity that resists simplistic explanations. Texas operates through distinct dynamics that occasionally converge and that other times collide, creating an environment as fascinating as it is complex. And as we explore the next facts, it becomes clear that these contradictions extend even into aspects of Texas life that most people would never think to question. When it comes to legislation, Texas often feels like a world of its own. The state holds a collection of laws, customs, and regulations, so peculiar that they seem to belong to another era, yet many remain in effect for reasons no one fully understands. Some of these rules were created to resolve problems specific to their time, but survived long past their relevance. Others emerged from unusual circumstances that transformed them into local curiosities. And there is a third category: laws that reveal a deeply contradictory state, swinging between extreme rigidity and surprising flexibility. One of the most curious examples involves animal-related laws. In various regions, old regulations govern everything from cattle movement to the use of specific animals in local festivities. In some smaller towns, it is illegal to let cattle roam freely through urban areas, not as a modern safety concern, but as a cultural remnant from the state's agricultural expansion. Interestingly, despite sounding outdated, many of these rules still matter in communities that preserve rural traditions as part of their cultural identity. Another intriguing element lies in land laws. Texas has a unique tradition of property ownership, with regulations that differ significantly from most U.S. states. In certain areas, mineral rights are legally separated from surface rights, creating situations where a homeowner may own the house but not the resources below it. This leads to complex agreements and scenarios that confuse anyone used to simpler ownership models. In some cases, companies can legally access natural resources beneath private land, as long as they follow specific protocols of situation. That feels contradictory to outsiders. Traffic rules also bring surprises. Some highways allow exceptionally high speed limits, reflecting the state's vast distances and the need for long travel. Meanwhile, certain urban areas enforce strict speed regulations, creating sharp contrasts between freedom and control. Additionally, some towns display signs warning of unusual local prohibitions rules that originated from isolated incidents but eventually became part of local folklore. Then there are laws that survive the passage of time despite feeling completely out of place today. Some were created to address community disputes, regulate niche commerce, or prevent social issues that no longer exist. Their persistence reveals a great deal about Texas character, a blend of tradition, resistance to change, and deep appreciation for regional habits. These rules function as more than guidelines. They are living fragments of a past woven into present life. Together, these legal peculiarities paint a fascinating portrait of Texas. The state seems to exist between two worlds, one modern, fueled by economic growth and innovation, and another anchored in long-standing customs shaped by centuries of history. This coexistence creates a legal environment full of nuance and hidden meaning. And as we move to the next chapters, we find that these contradictions echo throughout Texas, even in areas that seem far removed from law and governance. When people talk about mysteries, Texas is rarely the first place that comes to mind. Yet the state contains events so strange they became part of a quiet folklore stories whispered by longtime residents or studied by curious historians. As we explore these tales, it becomes clear that Texas carries episodes that defy simple explanations, revealing a side of its history that few openly discuss. Many of these events are so unusual they sound like legends. Yet they appear in documents, oral accounts, and remnants that survive the passage of time. It is this blend of reality and astonishment that keeps the state's most surprising mysteries alive. One of the most well-known mysteries involves unexplained lights that appear in specific desert regions. According to countless witnesses, glowing orbs emerge on the horizon at night, moving in irregular patterns as if following a logic no one understands. These lights have been observed for generations and have become part of local identity, attracting tourists, skeptics, and researchers alike. Several scientific theories attempt to explain the phenomena: atmospheric reflections, temperature inversions, distant headlights, but none have been conclusive. For many Texans, the mystery remains intact, fueling conversations that stretch across decades. Another strange chapter lies in the ghost towns that vanished almost as quickly as they appeared. Many were born during brief booms tied to mining, railway expansion, or oil drilling. When these ventures collapsed, the towns emptied overnight, leaving behind silent streets, abandoned buildings, and the echoes of dreams that dissolved. Walking through these places feels like stepping into a suspended moment, as if life simply shifted elsewhere and time forgot to erase their remains. These towns are tangible reminders of a past that refuses to fully disappear. Texas is also home to natural phenomena that deepen its aura of mystery. Certain regions feature unusual rock formations, geological alignments that look deliberate, and eerie sounds produced by wind traveling through narrow rock passages. These sounds, described as whistles, murmurs, or low moans, have inspired countless local legends. Some attribute them to shifting air pressure. Others see them as signs of forces beyond scientific understanding. Regardless of explanation, these occurrences amplify the sense that Texas holds layers of history not yet fully revealed. In addition, historical accounts describe expeditions that vanished without a trace, leaving only fragments of evidence and unanswered questions. Some involved explorers who ventured into remote regions, never to return. Recovered documents suggest they faced severe weather or harsh terrain, but other clues hint at unknown circumstances contributing to their disappearance. These unresolved events feed speculation and give Texas an atmosphere of wilderness where logic occasionally fails to offer comfort. These mysteries do not define Texas entirely, but they reveal a seldom-seen facet of its identity. They show a state that, beneath its bold and confident image, hides stories that challenge certainty. When we look closely at these strange facts, we realize Texas is vast, not only in land, but also in narratives that stretch beyond ordinary understanding. And as we move toward the final chapter, we find that even the most mundane parts of Texas carry surprising details that round out its complex personality. When people explore Texas through its grand stories, dramatic contrasts, and strange events, it's easy to imagine the state is defined entirely by spectacle. Yet there is another, Texas quiet, subtle, woven into the everyday lives of its residents. This hidden version exists in small habits, local customs, unspoken traditions, and patterns of behavior that may seem ordinary to those who live there but reveal a deeply unique identity to outsiders. These understated elements shape a Texas that doesn't appear in headlines but profoundly influences daily life. One of the most interesting aspects of this invisible Texas is the relationship residents have with distance. Because the state is so vast, Texans grow accustomed to traveling long stretches as part of routine life. Driving for hours to visit family, attend events, shop for specific items, or simply enjoy changing landscapes is normal. This familiarity with long distances creates a quiet resilience, some mental adjustment to immensity that shapes how people perceive time, space, and commitment. Another subtle but defining trait is the preservation of simple traditions. In many towns, local fairs, community gatherings, and seasonal festivals act as anchors for collective identity. These events may appear modest, but they carry deep meaning, reinforcing bonds among neighbors and between generations. It is during these gatherings that the state's cultural diversity becomes most visible, blending food, music, and customs from countless backgrounds into unique celebrations. Texans' social interactions also reflect particular nuances. Hospitality, a trait often associated with the state, emerges not in grand gestures, but in small acts. A friendly greeting, an offer of help, a quick conversation that unexpectedly becomes an exchange of personal stories. These moments create a social fabric that is both resilient and welcoming, connecting individuals even across wide geographical distances. Nature also plays a quiet role in shaping daily life. Despite the harshness of certain climates, many Texans maintain a deep connection to their environment. They preserve agricultural traditions, maintain green spaces, and observe natural cycles with an attentiveness passed down through generations. This connection influences everything from home construction to local customs tied to specific seasons and weather patterns. In these quiet gestures, unspoken traditions, and everyday behaviors lies a version of Texas that complements the extraordinary stories. This subtle layer completes the portrait of a state defined not only by its extremes, but also by the details that often go unnoticed. When we combine all these elements, its mysteries, contrasts, culture, landscapes, and routines, we understand the truth. Texas is not simply a place on a map, but a living organism shaped by countless forces, visible and invisible, dramatic and ordinary. And within these layers, its most authentic identity emerges.